Hey everyone, welcome to today's session. So, today we're talking all about fat loss tactics you don't need. So, we're actually going to talk about 6 different ones that you don't need. I talk a lot on this channel and in a previous video on no nonsense fat loss and how to just really hone in on things that you need for the stage that you're at. So, I do want to preface this by saying when we're talking about the things that you don't need in this particular session, I'm referring to women over the age of 40 who are also over the 30% body fat amount. So I just want to be perfectly clear about that because these are what's going to separate these tactics is there are things that you may need to do when you are above 30% body fat in order to get down to or below that amount. And then things might shift and change a little bit once you reach that amount and you get to that like 25 to 30% zone. There are some things that may or may not need to come into play again. So that will be the differentiator for that. So if you are someone who is over 30% body fat and you're over the age of 40 and you're a female, you're in the right place. If you are under 40 years old or under 30% body fat or a male, you are welcome to stay, but I am not speaking to you. So, just with that being said, let's dive right into the tactics. So, the very first tactic that I will say, and you'll hear me mention this in other episodes, that you do not need right away is fasted cardio. So, if you are fasting every morning, and maybe you don't consider it fasting, but typically when people are doing it, I'm saying like you've learned about fasted cardio. So you're kind of getting up and you're having that cardio first, and then you're starting your breakfast, or maybe you're not having breakfast for a while. So this may or may not fall into the realm of intermittent fasting, but especially like having that like early morning or that cardio first thing on an empty stomach. It's a very marginal territory as far as the results that you'll get from it. So it's one of those things that although it's promoted a lot for all of the like fat burning and things of that nature, and I'll link to other episodes where I've talked about this specifically, it is not necessary when you are at higher body fat percentage levels. When your total body fat percentage is like 45, 55%, and you're either maybe your goal is 30%, or maybe you don't even care about getting down to 30%, or maybe you're trying to go from 55 to 35, then having to introduce fasted cardio is not something that's probably going to be necessary on your journey. So this is one of those things that you can save for later. At this moment, what's going to matter most is calorie balance, which is just calories in versus calories out. Like how much are you eating? How much are you burning? If those things are off, then you will find that something else is off. And what I want to say with this and all of the other tips is that if you find that you have to implement these in order to see results, whether it's a huge result, whether it's a very mediocre result, it's pointing to a bigger problem. So when I'm saying that you don't need these yet, I'm not saying that they won't like work or show you a result or that you will not see something happen by implementing them. It's just the point that they're going to be more useful to you at a certain point, and that certain point is a lower body fat percentage range. If you need to execute any of these at a higher body fat percentage range, then there's a bigger problem. Let's solve for X. Let's solve that problem first. So right now at this stage, you would just want to focus on getting consistent with your exercise versus like nitpicking the time of day and all of that stuff. The only thing about the time of day would be getting it to a consistent amount, like doing it the same time of day each day, maybe just to be consistent, but having to do it like on an empty stomach first thing in the morning and it having to be cardio and all of that is completely unnecessary at this stage of the game. But once you're closer to your goal, once you're, toting the line of like maybe you're at 23%, 24%, you're one of those people that hung around, who knows, maybe that would help you at this stage of the game. It might start to give you a slight edge at that time. So the second one that I would say is going extremely low with carbs or keto. Now, this, as with probably all of the ones that I'm giving today, are going to be controversial, and it's because of what I just said in tip number one. Do they work? Sure, absolutely. If you try any of the things that I'm telling you today, you will see movement. You will see scale movement. You will see a result from it. You may see body fat percentage drops. It's just a matter of how long these particular things are intended to work for. And is that longer than your journey will be or should be? So, doing something like cutting carbs drastically can feel really hardcore. It can really feel like, okay, like I'm going all in on my goals. I'm doing what I got to do. And especially when we're at higher body fat percentage ranges, especially if we've like yo-yoed a lot of times there is some metabolic issues there. And with metabolic issues, the way that your body processes carbs does tend to change. So a lot of the little things that you may hear at that weight when you're researching carbs will have some element of truth to them. I talked about this a little bit in my video about carbs, but I didn't go into a lot of detail on that because of the fact that it's more nuanced than you would think. So, when you're at your highest body fat percentage level, especially if you've lost a lot of muscle mass, there will be an issue with the way that your body processes carbs. However, that is only part of the bigger picture. So, again, remember if you find yourself needing any of these tips, there could be pointing to a bigger picture. So, in the sense of someone's body not being able to process carbs properly, there could be a bigger underlying issue. Have you lost too much muscle mass? The less muscle mass that you have, your body starts to process carbs differently because of the fact that muscles are carb hungry. So if you have a lot of muscle mass and you're feeding yourself carbs, they're going to process a lot differently than someone who's lost a lot of muscle mass and is eating a lot of carbs, or someone who's very active versus someone who's not active. So like there's a lot of things that play into, like I say, some of the truth surrounding why, carbs may be affecting you in a certain way. But again, we're talking about extreme. We're talking about you having to be extreme with your carb intake or trying to like get into a ketogenic zone when you still have 10, 15, 20% or more body fat to lose. You need to pay attention to whether or not that's something that fits with your lifestyle. So, like I said, it can feel really hardcore to a lot of women, but if it's not something you're going to be able to keep up in the long term, it might not be worth it. Also, it might be more worth make rebuilding your body and your metabolism to a way that it actually just processes carbs better if carbs are a part of your life. You can also check out my video on low carb versus high carb, but also low carb versus low fat, which one is the best for you, to get a little more information about how to determine where to stick your carbs. So I'm not saying that they have to be super high. I'm just saying that if they have to be super low for you to get a minuscule amount of movement and you have a long way to go, it may not be worth its weight for you. So just keep that in mind. And then as you near a plateau or you start nearing those lower body fat percentages, maybe you want to throw in that, maybe then fine tuning your carb intake might be a little more relevant to where you are at that stage of the journey. So the next one kind of goes hand in hand with the 2-a-days with the fasted cardio, and that's 2-a-day workouts. So a lot of times what I find when women are doing fasted cardio, sometimes that turns into 2-a-days because of the fact that maybe they've seen like a lot of these like videos or blogs on YouTube where these bodybuilders are like they're getting up with nothing in the system and they're hitting the stairs, or they're getting on the treadmill and they're getting in that fasted cardio very early in, and then they come back and they eat breakfast and they do that whole thing, and then they go out later and lift. So like I said, that can turn into 2-a-days. So these two tie in together. If you're finding that you need more than one workout per day to see movement, again, we're looking at a bigger issue. Are you not burning enough calories throughout the day? And that's why you're trying to do that. Maybe we need to look at how do we increase your NEAT, your non-exercise activity. Maybe we are looking at we need to build a little bit more muscle mass so that your body's burning more calories when you're at rest. Again, if you are someone who is 45% body fat and you're watching these videos of bodybuilders who are at 12 to 14% body fat, they need that. You don't. So that's one of the things that you definitely want to keep in mind because of the fact that you have a longer journey, which means you have more time for your body to adapt to certain things and not work anymore. And the thing about the adaptation is that it's not like you just leave it alone. The adaptation means you add something else on top of that. And that is definitely not what we want to do. We don't want you to be, having like fasted cardio, doing 2 a days, and it stopped working, and you still have 18% more body fat to go to your goal, and you have to add something else on to that. Absolutely not what you want to do. So during this time period, it would be better to, again, just focus on getting consistent with your workouts. Just focus on building up and getting in the right amount of lifts that you need to. If you're adding on cardio, add it in on your off days, because you don't need to be lifting every day. You also don't need to be doing cardio every day. There's 7 days in a week. If you need to get in more activities, spread them out amongst themselves. The only exception to this, I would say, is maybe if you wanted to do like a yoga or mobility type thing, like on a day that you lifted, then I wouldn't necessarily consider that a workout. But again, we don't want to use this as a time period to get like super extreme and, try to like reach some super high calorie burn per day. Start looking at other areas and looking into why you need that super high calorie burn. So reserve your 2 a days for when you are in competition mode and you are at 18% and you're trying to get to 16 or something like that. You have to hit the stage, you have a big photo shoot, fitness magazine called you and wants you on the cover. Then whatever, do what you have to do, go all in, get the 2 a days in. But other than that, wait until after you've mastered the basics and you're at a reasonable enough plateau that implementing this for a short period of time would make sense. So the fourth one, are we on number 4? I always lose track. Number 4 would be being really precise with your nutrient timing. So this is again something that stems from like the bodybuilding or competing world, or like fitness models, or maybe you're hearing about like you need to like eat within a certain anabolic window of your workouts, or getting like really precise with having your shake right after your workout or something like that. Some of those things may be great just to get you in the habit of eating, when you should be eating, and so that you don't get to the end of the day and have undereaten and not hit your goals. But you don't really have to be as precise. So this also includes like carb cycling, intra workout shakes, and stuff like that. A lot of the extras that you will hear about people at lower body fat percentages doing is not something that is needed at the higher body fat percentage. So adding unnecessary complexity, adding extra layers of things to do that just make the journey so much harder when you're at the very beginning, all of these things can start to burn you out. And you don't want to get burned out early on because you have a ways to go. So, again, this is something that you want to reserve. Wait until you've established some other habits. Wait until you just have the habits of hitting the nutrients that you're supposed to be getting in total for the day, getting in the total amount of calories that you need, things like that, before you start worrying about trying to optimize them. A lot of times things get tossed out from the research saying that something is optimal, but remember, optimal means different things for different people, and there's a lot of nuance to it. So optimal just may mean that under these circumstances this thing is happening, but you don't need to optimize something that you haven't already started yet. So right now, just focus on hitting your calories, meeting your macros every day. So that also goes into the next one, which is number 5, and that is over relying on supplements. So this includes things like fat burners or BCAAs, and things like that. So including a fat burner when you have 15%, 20% body fat to lose is not really optimal. That's not really optimizing anything yet. That's a very marginal gain that you can, if you already have the fat burners, put them on your shelf. And when you get down to like the last 2 to 3 body fat percent that you need to lose, then go ahead, break them out so that you can break through that last little bit of plateau. Other than that, most of them are just like extra caffeine to get you, hyped, or some of them may have illegal substances. It doesn't matter. The point is that they're so marginal that they don't matter yet. Same thing with like BCAAs and a lot of the other supplements that you may see. If you find yourself like, I'm going to lose weight this year, and you go straight to GNC, unless you're just like picking up something basic, like maybe like protein powder and creatine, maybe, that you probably don't even need to go in there. So unless there's some supplemental foods and things that are helping, like let's say, for instance, you've gotten to the point where you got your calories down and now you're trying to focus on your macros, and maybe you're getting supplements to help you hit those. So a fiber supplement or a protein supplement, something that's playing into the bigger picture and it has more like staying power. So using things like that that are helping you move big needles are going to be more important than over relying on very minor supplementations that don't really matter. Like for BCAAs, if you're getting in enough protein, then you probably don't need BCAAs because those amino acids are inside of the protein. So you actually don't need to double down on them. So those are some of the little things that you want to think about, or collagen supplements, or some of those things. Like utilize those to help you hit the bigger picture goal, not so much as like, if I just start taking collagen, suddenly I'm going to like lose a ton of weight and my skin is going to be luscious and everything's going to be great. Like, no, add that into the total amount of protein that you need. Same thing with fiber supplementation. And a lot of the other things can probably stay on the shelves, like we said, until you're down to that like finish line body fat percentage. So the last one that I would say is clean eating. Of course, I say the best for last. Like I said, a lot of these are going to be controversial. Having something like clean eating in this list and saying you don't need it can come across as like I'm telling you to be unhealthy. I'm not. I'm just saying that this is not something you need to do in the beginning. You can lose weight eating junk. You can lose weight eating, things that are processed. You can lose weight eating a variety of foods rather than, like I said before, overcomplicating something and adding all of these layers and rules to something that you haven't even established a baseline to. If your ultimate goal is, yes, I want to be like healthier, I want to include more healthful foods and things like that, yes, work through that in layers. But if clean eating is a 180 from your regular eating, then you would be better suited taking your regular eating, getting it within the calorie proportions that it needs to be. So eating smaller portion sizes of those if need be, and then focusing on your macros, focusing on your protein, focusing on your fiber, getting in enough water. Like, again, focusing on big needle movers. When you're eliminating food groups before you've even gotten the basics down, some of those food groups might actually help you. So doing something like eliminating gluten when you don't have an intolerance to it, just because you've heard about it and somebody else is doing it and they say that it's like help them lose a lot of weight, you could also be eliminating fiber, which is very important. So those are the things that you want to think about, is because of the fact that if you haven't mastered the basics yet, you might start removing things and it's actually taking you away from your goals. So tread carefully on this, make changes very slowly, and make them according to where you are in your journey. When you're on your journey, again, everyone has different needs as far as what types of like micronutrients that they need. But when it comes to losing weight, everyone can really focus on those basics first. And once you have those down, then that will give you a better idea of any micro tweaks that you need to make. So focus on being consistent with your workouts, getting in the right amount of calories for your goal. So the right amount of food for your goal. And then if you want to take that a step further, you focus on the macronutrients, getting in the right amount of protein and fiber and things like that for your goal, which fiber is a little bit more micro. But if you wanted something to focus on, I would focus on those two. And once you've gotten those down, which for most people, that is plenty, then if you're still having issues that are like health related and you need to make those tweaks, do what you need to do, follow doctor's orders. But if it's just a matter of you're trying to make things move faster, like you typically don't need the extra stuff in order to make things move faster. So if, again, you are a woman over the age of 40, over 30% body fat, take great caution in doing things too soon, you guys. Doing things that are unnecessary, especially if you have no desire to even get below 30%. You may not ever need those tactics unless there's something that you want. And then that would make more sense. So you're able to get to your goal and you're making choices for your health that matter to you versus majoring on the minor. So when you're focusing on what to do, the main thing that I would say is if you want to use those advanced tactics, wait until you're at an advanced stage. Other than that, you're getting consistent with your workouts, you're getting the big pieces of the food together, and you're fixing any of the glaring red flags. Like I said, if you find that you need any of those 6 things in order to get a small amount of movement at a very high body fat percentage range, then you might want to see what is the bigger picture thing that is focusing on. Do I need a metabolism reset? Do I need to rebuild some lost muscle mass? Like, why is my body responding in this way to these tactics and not to the basics? Do I not have the basics down? Do I not have enough muscle mass? Do I need to take a break from dieting? What is the bigger picture red flag? So I'll link to some videos that will help with this, but I just want to make sure that we make that clear. So I know some of you guys had some questions. I will probably address those in a future video, but like I said, because you're asking about the body fat percentage range, why I picked that. The reason why I picked that is because of the fact that when you're looking at like body fat percentage charts, for instance, that 30% is probably going to be more of that milestone range for women that are over the age of 40. If you're under 40, then maybe not so much, but like that's what's going to put you back within like normal range. And then going below that typically starts to put you in the lean range for your age group. So that's the reason why I'm saying that, is because essentially I'm saying lean versus being average or above average, but I wanted to give you kind of a number to hold to. So that's what somebody was asking. But once you've dropped your body fat closer to 25 to 30%, then that's when the advanced tactics would work. So that's when you're in more of the stubborn fat loss zone. Otherwise, a lot of us just like to call our fat loss stubborn, and it's not. Just because you're sick of it doesn't mean it's stubborn fat loss. Stubborn fat loss means unlike what we think. We just think like, I want it to go and it's not gone, so it's stubborn. But if you're above 30% body fat, you're not dealing with stubborn fat loss. Stubborn fat loss is more of when we're talking about like the vanity pounds. So like I said, the person that is, maybe they're below 25%, they're trying to get to 23, or they've hit 23 and now they want to push it to 21, or, so the person that's trying to like hit the stage and be like a super low body fat, because of the fact that those are more vanity pounds, they're not enhancing your health at all after a certain point. That is something that is going to require some tweaks that may be a little bit more uncomfortable, because of the fact that your body's trying to hold on to what it absolutely needs. And at a certain point, you're pushing past that. So that's something to think about, is like I said, like once you're, I would say 25 to 30%, depending on how close to 40 or how far away from 40 that you are, is when things should get a little more like you need to start maneuvering pieces to the puzzle a little bit better. But if you're way above that and you have no desire to go below that, then yeah, you can leave those tactics for the end. But at that point, if you are someone who is there, so somebody's saying like, what if I am at 25% and at a plateau? Then yeah, at that point, every small little edge helps. So that's when some of those things may apply to you. Again, I will always say, make sure you have the basics down first before you start messing with other stuff. But if you don't, if you feel like you already have the basics down and you're doing everything else and you're super consistent with your workouts, you log all your food, you hit your macros, you hit your calories, and like, you're at 21% and you really, really want to go to 18, then yeah, you may need to make some uncomfortable maneuverances to your, to the way that you eat or to the way that you exercise. But again, like I said in the beginning, this was dedicated to my ladies who are well over that 30% mark. So for you guys, you don't need those tweaks yet. So hopefully that helped you guys. Again, check out the videos that I will link below for more. And thank you for joining. I'll see you guys in the next one.